can't believe I haven't made a video about my Grateful Dead record collection. So here we go. I've gotten a lot of requests to do the Dead. If you look at some of my earlier videos or mid-period works of video art on the vinyl, in the vinyl community here, I've done a lot of semi-autobiographical showcases of San Francisco bands, psychedelic bands, the Fillmore Avalon, the movie Handbills I have, just anything about San Francisco. Because as I said before, and some of you who've been around watching me for a while are tired of me fucking say it, I'm a native San Franciscan. I was born on the tip of the Haight-Ashbury on Standing Street, maybe a block, 2 blocks from the, 3 blocks, 4 blocks, 3 blocks from the 2400 Fulton Street Jefferson Airplane Mansion that would they would purchase in the late 60s. And so this is gonna be a showcase of my Grateful Dead record and compact disc collection. Now, here's the excuse part to it. First of all, I wanna warn you, watch this in segments. I'm gonna try to do in segments, and I might be rambling a little bit, just like a Grateful Dead concert. And it might be as long as a Grateful Dead concert. Actually, it might be as long as one of their versions of Dark Star. How's that? But let me preface this by saying I am not a massive Deadhead, although I did see the Dead, I'd say close to 50 times over the years, and I'll talk about that as I showcase records. It was a perfect place for me to grow up in San Francisco, perfect time and everything. So that'll come through as I show these records. But I'm not one of those, I don't want to say wanker Dead fans, Deadheads, because hey, I respect and I love the Deadheads. I love you people. Where I know that, oh my God, man, the December 72nd Cornell concert of 1977 of Dark Star, where Bob Weir, his tuning goes off the rails, and there's that cool drum solo part, drums, when finally Mickey Hart came back in the band in 76 after the Dead's hiatus. I don't know all that stuff. I have a lot of tapes, or actually not tapes. I never got into the taping collector thing, but I have a lot of digital sharing concerts and things. I don't have all the Dave picks or Dick picks. The bottom line is I'm not a Dead completist, but I love their music. And as you see when I get through here, in terms of the reissues and box sets and things, if it's in a real elaborate box set, I like the music and the design, I'll grab it. Or I tried to grab all of the shows recorded in San Francisco. I do not have any of the Dick picks again, so I don't have all those. So I do not have all the Dead shows in San Francisco. But I'm gonna do this in fairly segments. I'm gonna do a little segment of box sets, CDs, the basic core catalog, and then some solo related. I don't have everything solo, and I'll just do that on the vinyl section. But first, if you've seen my handbill collection, I showcased a few videos on San Francisco handbills, because when I was a kid in the late 60s, I got on the mailing list for the Avalon and the Fillmore, and I was on the little slightly young to go to most of those shows. I did go to one Fillmore West show to see The Who perform Tommy, just a couple months after Tommy came out, and in '69 is when I started seeing concerts of the Dead at Winterland and beyond. But I did see the Dead starting in 1968, and that was the free shows. I'd go ride my bike with my buddies, and I'd see the free shows in Golden Gate Park in the Panhandle around Haight Street area there. So I did see the Dead several times there. But let me just quickly go through a few of my handbills that have the Dead on the bills, just so you can see some upside down fun. I don't think it matters if these are upside down or not. Fun art. I probably have some other ones, but those are just a few samples I pulled. And while we're going on, we'll see how long this goes. I'm playing an Arista release from 1986, I believe, that came out. And this is acoustic set. This is the Grateful Dead at the Warfield Theater in 1980. I think this is the last time I saw them. I saw one of these shows. The last time I saw them, and I took a hiatus. I was getting kind of tired of the Dead because of I was getting into punk and other music, and that hippie band. I got a little tired of them. Didn't see them again until '89. So, without further ado, in fact, first here's a little ado. I showed this on another video, but this is a beautiful book of my birthplace by the great photographer Jim Marshall called The Hate. Came out about 3 years ago. And it has whole lifestyle pictures of the Hate, mostly around the summer love period. But there's a whole section of the Grateful Dead throughout the years. And they lived at their famous Victorian at 710 Ashbury, which is literally on the block right from Haight Street. So, well worth, if you like collecting photography. Jim Marshall's a great photographer. I have a feature on him, so look at that too. But this is a great book. So, here we go. My story starts, this is a little autobiographical. My story starts in 1967. Early in that year, I was home from school for a couple of days. I don't remember why. I was sick, and I don't remember if I had a flu or what the deal was. But after a day or two, I remember my mom was going out shopping, and she actually asked me, would you like her to pick something up for me? And I said, can you go to the record store? There was a record store that my buddies and I used to hang out with. It was a music store and music center. And in the middle, the entire middle of the length of the long store were the bins of records. On the left wall were all the guitars. The back were drums and amplifiers. And on the right, a very narrow store, the right was the cases with microphones, harmonicas, accessories, guitar straps, things like that. We used to just hang out there and play the guitars. I mean, this was a perfect time, 1967, San Francisco. And I had heard on KMPX radio, Golden Road of Unlimited Devotion by the Grateful Dead. And I'd heard about the Grateful Dead by seeing these posters, and we all knew the name, but I was too young. I didn't see the Dead in 66 or 67, but I told her I wanted this album, a new album by the Grateful Dead. I think she, as the Yiddish Jews would say, she plotzed. She plots. You want a record by the Grateful Dead? What is the Grateful Dead? She didn't know what that was, but she came back with this album, and I fell in love with the band. I'd heard on the radio a few other songs. I think I heard Good Morning Little Schoolgirl on the radio. In fact, KMPX played pretty much everything. I thought one of the coolest songs at the time also, and the coolest names, was Cream Puff War. I thought that was so wonderful. This is my original copy from 1967 that my mother brought me, but I still to this day think Golden Road to Unlimited Devotion should have been a bigger hit than it was. It was big around the Bay Area. I think it hit some of the AM stations around the country, but it wasn't like a super breakout hit. So that was the first thing, and it was all over. I started buying all the Dead albums, and I'll showcase them. Anthem of the Sun. Again, you know these albums, you Deadheads, this is nothing new. In fact, I should have probably prefaced it also saying, if you want to know specifics of each thing and the whole like wonky Deadhead, there's plenty of other videos where people dissect the music and dissect the albums. I'm just showing my collection. So, Anthem of the Sun, an original copy. There was a version of this that came out later, a remix version. This is the original. I have the remix in the reissue Rhino box. I used to have the remix, and in the 90s when I sold records, I started selling some duplicates, and I shouldn't have sold the remix. But Axomoxa, some people I've seen VC show this, and they don't know how it's pronounced. Anyway, it's pronounced Axomoxa, the Grateful Dead. And this album, I love this album. I mean, this is where a lot of the songs that became staples, Saint Stephen, Doing That Rag, Mountains of the Moon, China Cat, Sunflower, Cosmic Charlie. I mean, just a wonderful, wonderful record. Now, this record really changed everything. This was considered one of the first great double live albums by any artist. Obviously, it wasn't the first live album that someone put out, but it was a double album. It was psychedelic. I got this, and it was really wild. And my personal story about this album, I remember just a few months after I got it, my buddies and I, we were jamming and playing in bands, and we played at the Jewish Community Center a lot, and we would jam there after school because they let us use one of the rooms and play. And it was very close to San Francisco State College. And I was, so how old was I? 1969 when this came out, so I was 14 years old, and 14, 15, and there's these students from the San Francisco State Film Department that were working on a film, and they wanted some soundtrack. And I don't know how they got to my friend Larry and I. He's a drummer, I play guitar. They brought this in, and I think I just got it, or maybe I just heard it there for the first time. They were making a film, and they asked us if we would do a soundtrack. Now, we're not great musicians, but we were jamming, and I had a Pro Reverb amplifier, and I had just gotten I had a 1964 Jazzmaster, which wasn't a cool guitar at the time because it was a surf guitar. But Larry had his Ludwig Blue Metal Flake drum set, and these guys came in, they had a Nagra tape recorder, and they just wanted to record us doing feedback and sound effects and chords, and very much like some of the jams on this album. Now, we were there for probably 2 or 3 hours, and they kept taping. We'd stop and do different things. I would do this like Eastern Indian raga type thing I used to love to do on the guitar, a chord thing, progression. And it was so fun. And they used it to cut up to, I never saw the movie. It's out there probably in the world, maybe not. So my first soundtrack, a musical soundtrack. This is a great picture of the Dead playing on a platform on Haight Street. I did not see that show, but I did see my first Grateful Dead experience was in 1968 in Golden Gate Park. I saw the Dead Golden Gate Park once in 1968. We'd ride our bikes down to Golden Gate Park, and I could see the free shows. I was too young to go to the other shows. And then in 1969, I saw the Dead 3 or 4 times. Again, in Golden Gate Park, and one great, great show. It was the Grateful Dead and the Jefferson Airplane. And then my first ballroom, again, was not at Fillmore or the Avalon, but at Winterland. I saw the Grateful Dead and the Jefferson Airplane 1969 play Winterland. So, great album. I mean, that's a game changer, that album. And of course, I got on it, and right away I got, when this album came out, that it almost seemed more commercial, a little more accessible, even though it's not a commercial album. Again, this is my copy. And it's funny, when I worked in record stores, I don't have it anymore, and unfortunately I didn't keep it, but it came with this round Grateful Dead sticker. And in 1970, when I started driving, I'd always have one of those stickers on the back of my 1970, or what was it? I had a Pinto, that was a little later maybe. Anyway, I put the sticker in, and so when I worked in record stores, I'd slice them open and take the stickers out, because that sticker would always fade being on the back of the car. And so I'd replace it like every couple months with another sticker. This record, what's great about this for me, I got into blues songs like Big Boss Man. I got into Mama Tried Mull Haggard, and into, well, I knew the Chuck Berry song, but Chris Christopherson, and more country things. So having started seeing the Dead a lot, El Paso and Big Iron, I got into Marty Robbins. So the Dead really turned me on to all other kinds of music and jamming. And I started from 1970, 70, 71, 72. I went to the New Year's Eve shows the Dead played at Winterland. And then I played, and then the next year, I was so excited they were going to move it to there was rumors they were going to move it to the Cow Palace, larger venue. But it turned out, for some reason, the Dead pulled out. Again, I don't know all the history, but they pulled out, and the Allman Brothers played. So the Allman Brothers 73 at the Cow Palace. Now, this was a later issue that came out on a different label. This is recorded live at the Avalon. It's a cool vintage Dead. Cool, not part of their Warner Brothers years series albums, but it came around that same time. In 1970, 2 albums you all know about that really changed it for me and got me more into country music, and were game changers, and they really weren't big albums at the time. They weren't huge sellers, but to me, you know, in the studio, a lot of people consider the Dead not a great studio band, but I think these are two perfect albums. Could have been a double album, but American Beauty and Working Man's Dead, amazing records. And again, every time I'd see them play, they do some of the things. They started doing acoustic sets too, and I'll get into that as we go through the other records and everything. But then I started getting turned into some of their opening acts, where the New Riders of the Purple Sage would open up. Jerry Garcia, frequently when I saw them, he would play pedal steel guitar with the New Riders. One of the best sounding albums, live albums, is Europe 72. I remember downtown on Market Street, there was Musicland, which was a chain, and I remember being there on a Saturday morning. This is where you have these great, vivid memories of discovering records and music. I had heard about this record coming out, and they had a whole wall of this, you know, front and back. So they had alternated the covers, and I bought that copy, and I fell in love with it. Now, you may or may not know this, there's a lot of studio overdubs, vocals, music parts, bass parts. So it's not a purity of a live album, but it's common. And I'm not one of these people that freak out about when flying in different tracks to improve the sound of a live album. But you know, the engineer recording, Betty Cantner and Bob Matthews, who their names, I'm not going to talk a little about that's for someone else to talk about, of how these records were recorded and the whole taping, the live taping of them. But Betty Cantner is a very important woman, very important person in the whole Dead archive and Dead history of recorded records and engineering. And that's why they have such great sounding records, especially those two country records I just showed. American Beauty and Working Man's Dead, and then of course the live albums, and this one especially. I played this album to death. Gorgeous record, came with a book and everything. You know the record. If you don't, you should know it. Got it finally when I worked in record stores. This might be the first promo record I got in 1973 when I worked at a Warehouse record store. Warehouse was a West Coast record chain. Promo copy, I was into the Dead, I would go see him. Bear's Choice, again, a great live record. White label promo copy, and the copy I got there at the time. Volume 1, but there never was a Volume 2, at least during the record period. Now, some deadhead is gonna tell me that Dick Pics put something else out or expanded. I don't know that history, sorry. This is a German copy of their first greatest hits when they were leaving Warner Brothers and starting their own label. This is a good overview. There's been several overviews, which I have a couple of them, but this is a great overview. So now they're leaving Warner Brothers, so let's have a break, a little bit of music, and Mazzy will be right back. Okay, now I'm gonna go and showcase starting when the Grateful Dead left Warner Brothers Records and started their own label, working on their own. There are box sets and live things that have come out that's out of order chronologically, but that'll be a separate segment. This was the time where actually I really was working in record stores. And these are a section of little handouts that we used to give in the store. So I have multiples of these cards. They're not stickers, unfortunately. It'd be cool stickers. But I don't have all the solo releases, but I'm going to talk about a few solo things. Keith and Donna, this is on Grateful Dead Records and Round Records, which were the label of the Dead. I had a couple of records. Again, I got rid of them during the purge of the mid-90s Mazzy purge. Same with this Robert Hunter the lyricist, who worked with Garcia. Robert Hunter, another one. Sea Stones, I do have this. This is experimental. I'll showcase this when I do solo stuff. Old and in the Way, and of course, I have one of Blues for Allah. So these were handouts probably around 75, I guess, 75, 76, 74, 75, 76, something like that. So the Grateful Dead finally put out this record. And at the time, I got on the Grateful Dead's mailing list. Do I have it here? Yeah. I have a whole box of these somewhere. The Grateful Dead, oh, there's another one, Kingfish. Here's my hype sticker for the album that I saved. Postcard, Grateful Dead Records. The launch of Grateful Dead Records. But this is what I used to get like every few months. This is from October 1973, and this was their newsletter. This is a Grateful Dead newsletter. I have a bunch of these somewhere. I used to get them. They talk about their tours on here. This is for '73, El Paso, Fort Worth, Texas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Indiana. You know, there's things like cartoons. So these would come out several times a year, and I have them all. I did keep them, but this part is when this record came out. Beautiful cover. I was still into the Dead, and I'd go see them every time. Again, I think I saw the Dead close to 50 times. I would see pretty much every show, or most of the shows when they came. I remember, I think it was either in '75. Again, you Deadheads who know this shit more than I do will know. They did something like 5 nights at Winterland, and I think I went to 3 or 4 of those shows. So I would try to go see them every time. This is the label from their first album, Wake of the Flood. I'm not going to talk about all the songs, that'll take way too long. And again, as I said, there are so many other Dead showcases on here where people talk. I'm just going to show about it and share my experience. Live at the Mars Hotel, obviously not a live album, actually from the Mars Hotel. And it says authentic here, there's some boots going around. And if you turn it around, it says I buried Paul, and something like that. San Francisco. The Mars Hotel, I was around when that was still there before it tore down. It's on 4th Street near Harrison, I believe. It was an old kind of sort of derelict hotel that Jack Kerouac had stayed in way back in the 50s. And that whole area had been redeveloped, Yuba Buena Center, Moscone Center. So they went to color. They upgraded to color, Grateful Dead. Now these albums I liked, but you know, I still, my personal preference are the Grateful Dead from 1967 to about 73 in terms of most of those live things. However, there are exceptions, we'll get to them a little bit. And I continue to buy their music, and I liked them, but I wasn't like a lover. It's a promo copy I got of Blues for Allah. This came out in '75. Do you have any special inserts? There's an insert here. You can't read that. Why not even show that? You know, all of us on the VC show this shit that no one can fucking see when they show it up. Like, hi, here's my record. Do me a favor. When you're showing records, let us zone in and look at the cover. None of this stuff. I learned that early on because I used to do that too, and I just, you know, the photo agent in me likes to see the details. You do the Maslow flip, you turn it around, you show details. And again, I have another section of these in here, stuck in the album covers. So I have a oh my God, I have a sticker. This is probably worth $1,000 to some deadhead. I'll give it to you for $500. Anybody want the sticker for $500? It's yours. I'm kidding, I'm not a gouger. But this is a promo. But these promos are not like white label or anything, it's their own label. But it's kind of a cool, they did custom labels for a long time during this time. And they started getting distributed through United Artists Records. I think the first one they did themselves through independence, and they learned they needed better distribution. Of course, they learned in a way they needed a friggin' big time record company to promote them. So they did sign then to Arista Records. Clive Davis's Arista Records. People like to dump on Clive Davis. He left Columbia supposedly in disgrace, and he started Arista. And I think I just saw, who is it? Someone just showed on the VC here from some book on the Kinks. Who just showed that? I'm sorry, I forgot who you were, but I did pay attention that they the guy like hated Clive Davis, talked about him. He was a guy that promoted and made Barry Manilow famous, but he did sign the Grateful Dead. He did sign the Kinks. Patti Smith, come on. So, you know, Whitney Houston, yeah, okay, whatever. But this is a radio copy. It's banded because on one side it has, side 2 is Terrapin Station, which is one long friggin' cut with orchestration, very dramatic. Promo copy I got again, this is for airplay. You know, they send these to us, we play them in the store, but of course, you know, this is a white label promo. The copy I got in 1975, and produced by Keith Olsen, who great producer who produced the 1975 Fleetwood Mac album, the first Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks Fleetwood Mac, who just died about a month ago, I believe. Keith Olsen. I like this record. And we can get into live when I talk about the live shows around this time, because I did see again a lot of the Dead live then. I don't have everything they put out. I started losing a little interest. I thought when they started getting like slick, like the record companies were repackaging them, and they didn't seem like they were My Dead anymore. And you know how fans get like wanky but they started selling records, probably more so. This is the Brent Midland period. My favorite period was the early period live with Pigpen, which I saw a bunch of times, and even when Keith and Donna were in the band up until this point. Then I can't remember all the details. They kept having keyboard players exploding and getting new keyboard players with bad voices. And when Donna wasn't mixed well, when she couldn't hear herself, her voice can be kind of out there. But when they finally got monitors, her voice is pretty much a lot better, and I'll talk about that during the live shows. But Grateful Dead, Go to Heaven, perfect name. In the Dark. Now, the Grateful Dead finally have a huge AM top 40 hit with Touch of Grey. They're all over MTV with that marionette puppet video. I wasn't kind of into them at the time. This whole period, which I'll talk about, this is 87, this is way later. So, you know, I didn't get this right away. I thought they were almost too slick. I mean, look at these slick pictures. I hate the graphics on this album, I'm sorry. I think it's a terrible cover. But, you know, you Deadheads know better than I do. Now we're just kind of going some later reissues and things. I don't have every single album there. This is actually a nice comp. So another best of, you know, it depends if you just want a hits album. This is a good hits album. I should say best of, because it's not like they had a lot of hits. But the Grateful Dead, and you know, everyone says there's nothing like a Grateful Dead concert because they're more famous for their live stuff. And this is a nice mix of studio and live, I believe. Actually, this might be all studio. Yeah, this is good. Cream Puff Wars on here, Golden Road, St. Stephen, Uncle John's Band. I mean, Boxer Rain, Sugar Magnolia, Friend of the Devil. Basically, this would be all the great hits. And I can't remember, one of you guys or women, Deadheads may know, if this is all studio. I listened to it, but I just can't remember right now. But a gorgeous label, again. And then this was, I believe, a Record Store Day, Smiling on a Cloudy Day, that came out 2017. another comp, so many comps. And then this is a beautiful set. This is all their Warner Brother studio albums. It starts with the Grateful Dead album, Anthem of the Sun, Axamoxa, Working Man's Dead, American Beauty. And really nice collection that Rhino put out. All right, we're gonna take another break here, and I'm gonna do a little interlude of this early solo albums, and then I'll end up with the live box sets and CD live collection I have. Because you hear that ring? That means it's time for another music break. So, while we're in this next segment of just solo stuff and just early solo stuff, because I didn't kind of keep up with everything, I'm just showing some vinyl there. I'm playing this again. This is the great series of 1969 shows of the Fillmore West that turned into Live Dead. So I kept up with the Dead. I was obsessed with the Dead. I wasn't a Deadhead. I wouldn't follow around the country. I'd see them in San Francisco, and that was pretty much it. Maybe a couple outside the Bay Area for a short time. But again, seeing them in Golden Gate Park with the Jefferson Airplane was an amazing thing. And then I saw the Winterland show of them with the Airplane and the Dead together. Those are my two favorite bands. The Airplane actually was my first favorite band, but then I got into these Dead shows and the New Year's Eve shows. I did go to Altamont, and the Grateful Dead were supposed to play. I did see the Stones, but because of all the bullshit that happened at Altamont, the Dead ended up not playing. But it was a great show. I mean, it was a weird experience. I didn't know anyone was killed until I got home, and pretty much the next day. I don't think it was a great experience. I think just being, for the first time in my life as a young 14, 15-year-old, outside with, you know, 250,000 or more people, almost 500,000 people, at this, it turned out to be a tragedy, was weird. Did you see the Flying Burrito Brothers, Santana, the Stones, but that's a story for another day. But this record really changed it for me too, or I just fell in love with it. And to me, it's like an extension of the Dead. Great solo album. Some of it's very moody, very ethereal with the sound effects, but of course it has two songs that became The Wheel and Sugaree that became huge songs that the Dead performed. My copy from 1972 and a reissue Rounder Record Store Day copy that came out some few years ago. Since I showed Round Records, they did the Grateful Dead record, their own label. Their solo stuff was on Round Records. Garcia record, great album too. A lot of covers on here when a hunter gets captured by the game, but I really love his version of the old classic Russian lullaby on this record. And during the time in the 70s, I'd go see, again, I said I saw the New Riders. Jerry Garcia would play with them. Being in the Bay Area was a perfect place, going freight and salvage, going to some of the different clubs. When saw Old in the Way with David Grisman, and Peter Rowan, John Kahn, and Vassar Clements, a great violin player. Peter Rowan, I had seen the Rowan brothers, his two younger brothers were signed to Columbia. I saw them, I believe, opening up maybe for a Hot Tuna show at Winterland. But I did see this configuration play around. Peter Rowan, the older brother, was in C-Train for a short time before that, and of course made some great records, and is a great yodeler. So this is a great bluegrass record, and as those of you who follow the Dead know that Jerry Garcia really comes and has sort of his own folk bluegrass roots. My only other on vinyl Grateful Dead is the Eel Show in 1970, E-Reel. I didn't see this show. I did see the Grateful Dead band over the years. I did see Jerry Garcia and Merle Haggard, Merle Saunders, who played around the Bay Area quite a bit. Well, this is a cool record store day collection. Really great sounding. I realized I kind of wish, looking back on it, I wish the Dead had a couple of great harmony vocalists with them. I know a lot of people might poo-poo me saying that, but they never had, like, aside from Jerry, Bob Weir's a decent vocalist in his own way. This is just a personal take on me. That's why I love the harmonies on American Beauty and Working Man's Dead, because they're really tuned in really nicely. Because some you can hear some Grateful Dead live shows, and the harmonies are awful in some cases. I did watch the 50th anniversary thing without, obviously, Jerry Garcia that happened on 4th of July weekend several years ago. And some of those harmonies were cringe-worthy. Now, the other great debut solo album, which I think is a wonderful record too, was Bob Weir's Ace on Warner Brothers Records. Greatest story ever told, playing in the band Looks Like Rain, Mexicali Blues, great song Cassidy, written about Neil Cassidy. But I love, this is a winner, really great record. Other records during the solo years of Grateful Dead records and Round Records. This is Sea Stones, and this is a pretty much an experimental ambient record, not for the faint of heart, not for everybody. I remember playing it in the store way back in the day, and it's I don't want to say it's like noise music, but it is just electronics and weird things, and it's with especially Phil Lesh and Ned Lagan. It's really more of his thing, but it's kind of a Phil Lesh offshoot. So at the time when I was picking up pretty much all the Dead and Dead-related offshoots, I'd pick it up. It's kind of like these bands doing their custom label personal projects, like the Jefferson Airplane did with Grunt Records, Beyond the Airplane Records, and Hot Tuna. There was some experimental out there shit going on out of San Francisco and Marin County and these labels. This was a band I'd see a lot around town and around the Bay Area, quite a bit. Marin, East Bay, San Francisco's Kingfish. This is Bob Weir, David Torbert, who is from New Riders of the Purple Sage, Chris Harold, and Bobby Hoddinott, and Matthew Kelly. This is a good album. This is the only thing I have of Kingfish, again, from the mid-70s, I think 1976. And I'll skip like 4 decades pretty much after that. And the only thing I got from Bob Weir since is this album that came out just, 3 years ago? Came out 2016, 4 years ago. This is a wonderful record. This is a real organic acoustic. He's singing well, his playing as well. It's recorded beautifully. I highly recommend this record. for just folk fans. Isolation. That's quite a mane he has there of hair and beard, and it's great. But Bob Weir, come on, watch the Bob Weir documentary on Netflix if you haven't seen it, and the extended Grateful Dead documentary. Pretty wonderful stuff. So I'm gonna be back with the CDs, box set CDs, and live sets after this. I told you this would be as long as a Grateful Dead concert, or at least as long as one of their versions of Dark Star. So let's get into some live music and some vinyl box sets and CD box sets. First, I'll just show this. This is not that, but this is an amazing box set. This is their Warner Brothers years, all their Warner Brothers things with them extra tracks. So 1965 to 1973. All their studio and live albums done for Warner Brothers Records in separate sleeves, all the Warner Brothers years. There's also a box set of the later years with Grateful Dead Records and Arista, which I do not have, but I have some of those CDs separately. Great collection. I don't think this is available anymore, but to me, if you just wanted to get there an overview, this would be the thing to get the Warner Brothers stuff. Some may argue people love their later stuff, and obviously they went on and off throughout their period of live music and studio records. But here we go. Now, as I spoke about the Live Dead recordings, and I started playing this in the background before. This is on now in the background in the version of Dark Star from the Fillmore West 69. They're from these two box sets. These came out Record Store Day. I assume if Record Store Day ever happens again and the Dead ever expands, these are the February 27th to 28th show. I think they played 4 nights. Again, someone's going to correct me because Deadheads know every little second, like every little second of some weird version of a song. That's the great version of recordings. But these are amazing set. Again, these turned into what became Live Dead. These are expanded of all the nights, and I love these records. These are vinyl versions. I love the covers, love the artwork, and love that David Lumiere is the archivist for the Grateful Dead, puts out and compiles these amazing packages. And what they do, there's a process called a plangit process that goes through a digital source and fixes, and you can learn that about. I'm not going to tell you about that because I don't know how to describe it, but the recordings and the record sound wonderful. Again, I used to see a lot of shows. This is a show I attended, and this is a record store day, I believe, or limited edition. It's probably record store day. This came out in 2013. I love this cover. Now, this was a show that was not billed as the Grateful Dead. This was at a place called Friends and Relations. Actually, it was called the Family Dog then. It was this building right next on the beach, right next to Playland at the Beach. Playland at the Beach, across from the Pacific Ocean on the Great Highway, was an old amusement park that when I was a kid I used to go to, with a fun house and a roller coaster. And one thing I wish I had here as a visual description is where the Itsit was invented. Now, the Itsit is a West Coast San Francisco original treat. I think they're now made in down the peninsula to the airport, Redwood City. Itsit is 2 chocolate cookies with a scoop of vanilla ice cream in the middle, covered with chocolate. It was invented by Whitney. Whitney's Playland at the Beach, the person that created and built Playland at the Beach, God, in the 40s maybe, 30s, 40s. I don't know when it was actually built. I should have known that. But my buddies and I used to go there all the time in high school and get Itsits. Itsits now are available at markets, and they're all different flavors, mint flavors, but that's where the Itsit. I'm sure the East Coast, I'm sure you viewers in the UK and Italy have something similar, but an Itsit, I-T-S, with apostrophes. It's it. No, I-T-S, I-T apostrophe S, I-T. I'm gonna tell you about Itsits longer than this video version of Dark Star if I don't control myself. Anyway, right next to the Playland at the Beach was a building. For a while in the 70s, it was a slot car racetrack with those giant slot car things. It was a big open space. It was kind of a roller rink for a while. Friends and Relations, and I'm blanking out on what was a club for music. Then the Family Dog took it over. The Family Dog is the collective that Chet Helms, who started the Avalon, opened up. And the Family Dog later, I think in the late 60s or early 70s, also had a place in Denver, the Denver Family Dog, for live shows. So that was the longest fucking story for me to talk about this record. I won't do that for every record. But I love this. This came out. Decent recordings. It's an acoustic set. And it was Mickey Hart and his Heartbeats, Bobby Ace and his Cards from the bottom deck. And it was basically the Grateful Dead and offshoots not billed as a Grateful Dead concert. I attended it April 18th, 1970 in San Francisco. Beautiful cover, beautiful package. And I remember I was 15 years old when I saw this show. Really cool, great. Highly recommended. Not one of their sonic masterpieces, but just killer Dead show. I mostly, when I do buy these vinyl boxes, I don't get all of them. I mostly, with CDs too, are trying to get the San Francisco shows, not Dick picks or Dave picks that are sold directly from the Grateful Dead website. I don't get all the archive shows. Again, reminder, if you just joined in, I'm not a completist. But there's certain shows I enjoy. This is August 27th, 1972, Oregon show. Cool box set, vinyl collection. Is it 4? I think it's 4 LPs. See, that was short and sweet. Now this is incredible. Grateful Dead, Portland Memorial Coliseum. And I'm going to show, when I show the CDs, the massive set of the Pacific Northwest. And part of the reason I got this now, I've been living in Seattle for 6 years, so I feel I need an allegiance to the Great Northwest and support releases from the Great Northwest. They only released the Oregon 1974. Dead people need to know the fucking dates, right? The May 19th, 74 show, when Jerry Garcia pulled a string and his E tuning string was a little sharp. I'm just making that shit up. Portland Memorial Coliseum, great artwork by forgot his name right now. But, you know, maybe I should talk about this a little bit. The Grateful Dead's Wall of Sound. Again, there's other places you can go and learn more about that. That's this mega sound. I saw them when they first performed using the Wall of Sound at the Cow Palace. And that's this massive speaker system that Bear Owsley, the Owsley, great sound engineer and great maker of wonderful LSD, acid. I'll mention the artist's name when I show the complete other box set. Now, this is also a show, I went to 2 of these shows, October 9th, 1980, and October 10th. I believe this is the last time I saw the Dead until 1989. I kind of was getting tired of seeing Dead shows because I started getting into, a few years earlier, punk and new wave, and the Dead was considered a hippie band. I just got tired of these. If you were there, you know exactly what I mean. You get rid of all those overkill prog bands, Genesis and Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and doing 3-4 CD sets of the history of bagels as a prog opera. I don't think they actually did History of Bagels, but like Henry VIII's Wives by Rick Wakeman and all that bullshit. And the Grateful Dead, the 40-minute guitar solo and everything got a little stale for a while for some of us. Now I can go back and listen to those shows and I love them. But that was a time as you're growing up. I got to be, around that time, 25, 26, and 27, and things were changing musically. I'd been into the Dead for, way past a decade by that point, and it was time to kind of move away a little bit. But this series of shows was the last time. I love these shows. Warfield shows, acoustic mostly, but also electric, as I recall. The 2019 they released the Warfield shows, but mostly acoustic, I believe. Yeah. Sometimes you go through these and you forget specifically. Dire Wolf, Dark Hollow, Cassidy, China Doll, Ripple. Come on, the Warfield Theater on Market Street, a great place. Saw the Dead there a number of times too, and that's where Bob Dylan did his Jesus shows. His first series, like 5 nights, I went to 2 of them, of his Jesus Christian shows, where nobody knew that Dylan was going to do that, and he didn't do one secular song. It came out and people were booing and walking out. It was hysterical. I love that stuff. You probably heard some of the things on the release that came out recently. I wasn't going to get this record when it came out. This limited edition of 7500, 2015, Grateful Dead, Wake Up to Find Out, Nassau Coliseum, Uniondale, New York in 1990. I didn't know much because, again, I don't follow all the live Dead shows like some of you folks out who may be watching this. You know more than I do. I get that. Make your video and tell us about that shit. But I heard some of this and I had to get it. Branford Marsalis, a great jazz artist, plays on some of this. And this is a fucking wonderful, one of the better sounding live Dead shows. I hate it. I didn't mention it, but talking about the Dead, and it'll come up when I show some of the CDs. The Dead sort of went in a hiatus from after 1974, 73, 74. I guess after 74 until about 76? They finally came back. They did do one show in San Francisco that I did see, a free show, 75, I believe. Again, I don't know all my dates. I did see this show in 1975 at Winterland. Jerry Garcia and Friends, Kingfish, Keith and Donna. This was a cool show. So I did continue to go see, any relic of the Dead I could at the time. But this, again, is a great friggin' show. Branford Marsalis and the Dead. Seems weird, but it works. Totally. Works beautifully. And of course, what a beautiful label. I'm not going to show the labels, but so that one is highly recommended. I don't know if the vinyl, I think the vinyl is kind of hard to get. I assume it's on CD. I don't have it on compact disc, but this is one I spin a lot, and I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, now we're going to take one more little break, and I'm going to show you the last series again. The Dead just stopped tuning up and finished tuning up, and now they're going to continue on for the next maybe another 10 minutes, and we'll come back with my CD boxes. Handle all this Grateful Dead? San Francisco, again, I keep saying San Francisco. I love this stuff. Now, CDs, expanded first album with some extra tracks. Has a whole extra disc 2 of Vancouver, BC from 1966. Very early concert, just for the, for the freak. It's not a necessity, but I got this because this started it all for me for the Grateful Dead, and I love that package. So, and then this is a partial sampler. This is the documentary you need to see. It's very long and it's very beautiful. Long Strange Trip, The Untold Story of the Grateful Dead. It's on Netflix. This is a 3 CD soundtrack. There's a vinyl version I do not have, but this is kind of a decent overview. Again, it's not essential. I'd rather go to a full concert. Some of the live shows I have, Without a Net. This came out on Arista, I believe. I think. No, it's Columbia. No. Oh, this is the one with Branford. Branford's on it. So. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I should have researched this. But this is a cool collection, so I do have this version of the CD. But it's different than that later vinyl box. Fillmore East, New York. Again, the Fillmore shows are amongst my favorites to get for whatever reason. Maybe because Bill Graham, does being a New Yorker and really pushing the artists of San Francisco and introducing a lot of us music fans to so many music. Going to the Fillmore, which I didn't go to, but Winterland, but I knew of the shows at the Fillmore and Chet Helms shows at the Avalon. The mix of artists, blues artists, big band jazz artists, Miles Davis, soul artists, mixed with rock and roll, and it just was an amazing time to grow up. And being I turned 13, 1967, during Summer of Love, and from then on, when having these free shows in Golden Gate Park, in the Panhandle, and Haight Street, and I was able to see. I remember also in Golden Gate Park, I saw Big Brother and the Holding Company with Janis Joplin, and I saw so many bands perform there. Quicksilver, I saw them at Winterland. I saw almost all the major San Francisco groups at one time or another at Winterland or in some free shows or then later clubs. Again, New York, this is 1971, the Fillmore East in New York, Grateful Dead Live. It's 4 CDs. And again, I can't compare and tell you, which is the best Dark Star, which is the best Morning Dew, which is the best Sugaree. That's for someone else to talk about. I did get a bunch of these. This came out in let's see, 2002. This is a 1972 recording, came out through Arista. There was a bunch of dead things that Arista helped reissue. And this is, I need to read it, this is England, 1972, Wembley, Empire Pool, Newcastle Hall, Bickershaw Festival, and Lyceum Theatre. So it's kind of a Europe 72 thing. Now one thing I wish I had, just for the hell of it, but it's crazy expensive now. The Europe 72 tour, there's a big friggin' trunk. It's like a tour trunk of, I don't know, is it 70 CDs, 60 CDs? Whacked. I'd like to have it, but obviously now it's over $1,000, $1,500 or something. So I would never do it. Okay, this is a beautiful set. Is this the Cornell set? Yeah, the Cornell 1977, one of the great live shows that I understand. I do like it. I know it because I've listened to it, but I think in terms of Deadheads and the taping thing, and this is considered one of their better shows, 1977, Cornell. Beautiful package, right? I love psychedelia. Released through Rhino, Grateful Dead. Cornell 77. Now this is a cool set. This is an overview, a retrospective, and this goes from the very beginning, 1975 to 1995. So if you want a little more beyond the 2-record set, or you want a CD, if you can still find this. When did this come out? This came out, goes through their last concert in 1975. And it's got a wonderful little book. So Many Roads. I feel fortunate, haven't seen them at the time, you know. Pretty much the later stuff I don't know anything about, but I just, again, 67 to about 77, and maybe pushing it to 1980, as I said, for that Warfield show, is something I like. Now this is a cool set. Beautiful little box. This is November 73. These are Winterland. This is a complete Winterland shows in 1973. I went to these. These are the ones I was talking about, or one of them. I went to several of these shows, and this was a box that came out in 2008. Again, having to get to San Francisco. This is why I hate CDs. Do you hear that? Someone picked their nose on this disc. I'll be right back. There's nothing like a Grateful Dead skipped CD. You know, you listen to a Grateful Dead CD, and when they start skipping...
American version of the Japanese film Magnificent Seven, The Grateful Dead.
That's Jerry Pompili, the voice of the Bill Graham shows. Supposedly, Jerry Pompili invented the backstage pass. Google it. I don't know if it's true. He worked for Bill Graham. He was the announcer in a lot of those Winterland shows. But the Winterland 73 shows, I'll continue. This set came with a button. And a book. This has also Cincinnati, Ohio, 1973. Winterland 73, Winterland 73. And a replica of one of the Grateful Dead mailing list things that we used to get. I think I showed this before, or one of these. I had to get on the mailing list of all this stuff, even if I didn't go and watch all the shows and see all the shows. Now, I'm going to end up with the big box I have. Not the big box that came out. I don't have the 1990. There's a tons of these massive design boxes, which are kind of overkill. But again, I'm a design snob. I love great design. This is something I literally just got. And this is the Betty Cantor tapes. Betty Cantor, again, I said earlier, great engineer, made these great tapes that were stored away that she owned for years, and they were auctioned off years later at three different sets of people bought the tapes at auction and storage lockers, and that is a whole other story. But this is 1976, and these shows, June 1976, limited edition number 08698 of 12,000. This is one of the best sounding Grateful Dead series of concerts you'll ever hear. And this is basically after the hiatus when they came back. I told you I saw them in 75 at the outdoor San Francisco. They did kind of warm up some shows before they left on tour. These are beautiful shows. These are the Boston, New York, Passaic, New York, and the Beacon Theater in New York. So this is their East Coast run. They're sort of, Grateful Dead comes out of retirement. Mickey Hart rejoins the band after been sort of semi-quit, tossed out, embarrassed because of other little things that I don't need to share here. But this is a gorgeous, gorgeous design collection. It's got a beautiful book. Let's see. I did see the band this period, as I said, just before they went off on this tour. And it's their comeback tour. They had better sound, better monitors. Donna sounds incredible on here because she could hear herself much better than that friggin' wall of sound thing. They scaled back a little bit. They got rid of the wall of sound, but they have a whole other better series of better sound system. So that's the Grateful Dead, and I'm going to end up with one more set after this. Okay, I'm going to end up with a box which visually is my favorite of my sets. And I bought it over the kill, over the top design. Ray Thomas Vickers, Native American artist, designed this box. I did show it in the box set video I made. It's incredible. And what this contains is the Pacific Northwest shows from 1973 through 1974. Roy Henry Vickers designed all the artwork. It's in Vancouver, British Columbia, Seattle, Washington, and Portland, Oregon. And it's an amazing designed art book and box. It's a 3D inside lid. It's got, each is a double CD. I did show you the Portland, Oregon show that was on vinyl. It's the only one they've issued on vinyl, as I know. It has numbered. I guess you can put your stash in here. Everything's about stash with the Grateful Dead, right? and it says, just a box of rain, wind, and water. Believe it if you need it. You don't just pass it on. Just a box of rain, wind, and water. Believe it if you need it. Don't pass it on. Just pass it on. And then each one, each one is what, 3? It depends. 2 to 3, 4 CDs each, depending on the shows. Since I'm in Seattle, I'll just show you one more, the Seattle show. So, Grateful Dead. I fell off the bandwagon, but I've always loved their music. I've loved their live shows. Again, as I said many times in this video already, this really long-winded video. If you're doing a video of the Grateful Dead, it's got to be a long-winded video. There's nothing like a Grateful Dead concert, and there really isn't. And especially the times that, at least for me personally, at that age, being in my 20s, especially my 20s, and seeing the Grateful Dead was an experience like nothing else. I love the records, but being in mostly Winterland, a few other venues, but Winterland, open space. Sometimes I'd sit in the balcony, but I always ended up downstairs. Was I dancing around, stoned out of my ass? Maybe an occasion, but I wasn't one of those, didn't take my shirt off and do all that kind of stuff that you see. It just is my speed. Not that I'm snooty that I wouldn't do something like that, but I just wanted to show you my take on the Grateful Dead. I wanted to show you my collection, talk a little bit about my experience growing up, and there was a perfect time, the perfect age to experience the Dead. Tickets were cheap. You could go every night, and tickets were $4, $5, $6, $7 maybe tops. In those days, they weren't really hard to get, as I recall. I don't remember how I got them. You just would buy and get them. You go to different venues and buy them. It was a great time to see the Grateful Dead. Those New Year Eve shows, those 3-4 years in a row that I went to see them in the early 70s on New Year Eve, was some of the best experiences musically I've had in my entire life. Technically, the best musicians and everything I've seen, no. But there's something about, and it's hard to explain to a novice or someone who doesn't follow the Dead, how their jamming and their interaction really kind of move between songs, and how they go from this song to that song almost seamlessly, right? Those of you that follow the Dead a lot and seen that know exactly what I'm talking about. Again, I fell off the Dead train for a while, but I'm revisiting it the last few years again as I'm being nostalgic about my hometown, San Francisco. And this music is just amazing stuff. So there's nothing like a Grateful Dead concert. Mazzy loves you, and thanks for watching. If you made it this long, you could hang out at a Grateful Dead concert. Take care.
Watch me right outside